Hello friends, so today I'm going to be doing a review of the television series and book series The 100, which I pronounce The 100, even though canonically it is The 100. Deal with it. There's also going to be spoilers for all of the books, including Homecoming, which came out in February, and both seasons of the TV show. Not like huge spoilers. Most of my spoilers for the show are going to be season 1 spoilers. So I did what a lot of people did with The 100, which is I marathon watched it on Netflix, at least season 1, because season 1 is on Netflix. Then I watched season 2, and then I couldn't deal with the fact that the season was over and there was no more storyline with these really great, interesting, complex characters. So I went out and bought all 3 of Kass Morgan's books, the last of which came out in February. I binge watched and read all of the 100 in March, so it was pretty close. I didn't realize it came out in February until I looked it up later. But I bought all 3 of them and read all 3 of them in about a week. The books are kind of slow moving in terms of like bigger plot. Like the fact that in Homecoming, that's when the adults come down from the space station, which happens in season 1 of the show. I kind of think I like the show more, which was created for the CW by Jason Rothenberg. He is the showrunner, and I just think he did a really interesting thing all the way around with adapting it. But one of the big things that a lot of people talk about when they talk about the 100, especially the show, is how the show deals with race. The books as the source medium are fairly vague on what people look like, as a lot of both teen fiction and just general fiction tends to be. There are a few times in which characters are physically described. Specifically, Clark and Octavia are kind of the only 2 that really get a description, and it's only really their hair. Clark is straw blonde, I believe, and Octavia has brown hair and wears a ribbon, and those are kind of the only really big physical descriptions you get of any of the characters. And then you have Jason Rothenberg's interpretation, which is that a good chunk of the main characters are black or are people of color, which is really awesome, and especially for like the CW, kind of super rare. So you have the show, which has a good amount of people of color in the cast. However, a lot of those characters, specifically the black characters, are kind of just killed. All the time. All the time. It's sort of the red shirt thing, but with people of color. So Wells is a great example of this. In the books, sort of likened to A Song of Ice and Fire, there are characters who narrate chapters. However, there are only 4 in the books instead of the 8 billion people who narrate chapters in A Song of Ice and Fire. You have Clark, obviously she's the lead of the series, both the books and the show. You have Bellamy, because he's the dude lead. Wells, and a girl named Glass. And Wells is still there. He exists. He is a really important lead character. He gets killed by a little white girl because she wants to kill his dad, because his dad has done some kind of messed up stuff in the space station. You know, when they thought they were the only people left and that they were gonna have to live in space forever. But he is killed about halfway through the first season, I would say, and no one has mentioned him since. Despite the fact that he was Clark's best friend, despite the fact that he was a really cool, or could have been a really cool character, and despite the fact that he is one of the leads in the books. And then you also have Bellamy on the show, who, the actor who plays Bellamy, Bob Morley, is half Filipino and I think like half Irish, and he's Australian, and he is a person of color, but you get one of 2 things happening around him. He is either a person of color and they have whitewashed the rest of his family, or he is supposed to be a white passing character. I say this because his sister Octavia is played by a presumably white actress. There's no real information about her ethnicity or her race, and the woman who plays his mom, if I remember correctly, is blonde and white, and so my interpretation of this is that he is a person of color who is supposed to pass as a white person. And then you have the fact that in the 2nd season, both the Grounders and the Sky People are led by 2 beautifully queer feminist ladies who are white. Cool. Especially since Anya, who was the leader of the Grounders in the 1st season, who was a person of color, died. She just died, and then they replaced her with Lexa, who was great, but she's white. She's white. And both her and Clark have their second in command as people of color. Yes, there are a lot of people of color, which is great. The representation exists. But also the representation is like, but now you die. Because white people. And that's not great. But also, in terms of like female characters, there are a lot of really great ones that are really well adapted, I think, and really well grown. Clark is a great example of a really good character. Octavia has more of a role in the show than she ever did in the books. She's kind of this weird side character that Bellamy like, sometimes I care about my sister, and sometimes I just want to make out with Clark. And I'm like, oh, okay. But I also think it's really interesting to kind of look at how the adaptation of the book into the show kind of changes the dynamic of women having power in the narrative as a whole. The fact that the Marcus character in the book is the leader of the Sky People when they fall to Earth, but in the show it's Clark's mom. And in the books it's Wells who is the leader of the 100, but in the show it's obviously Clark. And then you have the Grounders, because the Mount Weather people don't exist in the book. And in the books, the Grounders are led by an older man who's the father of the girl that Wells falls in love with. And in the show, it's woman after woman. In fact, I don't think we've seen a dude in charge of the Grounders. Something else that's really cool, I think, is that the 100 Writers Room has a Tumblr, and it's an official Tumblr, and they also have a Twitter, which is an official Twitter, and they post parts of scripts and kind of talk about the process of being in the 100 Writers Room, which I think is really cool as somebody who wants to be in writers' rooms, because I want to write TV. So I'll put all of those links to their Twitter and their Tumblr down below, and you can go check it out. I love seeing scripts and being able to be like, oh, this is what it looked like when they shot it. It's my favorite thing about scripts, is seeing how they did the blueprint. So yeah, I would definitely recommend both the show and the books. I will talk to you guys later. Peace out, Cub Scouts.